Okay, good morning, guys. This is Ron. Sunday morning, a little after 11 a.m. We get started here and again, see if we have questions. On yesterday, we spoke from Isaiah chapter 58. It was a couple of verses that George had pointed out to me last week, and verses 11 and 12. And we started looking at that. I think we mentioned it uh, at one point last week, and some other everybody had a chance to look at it. And Barbara really has some insight on it. And I don't mean to impose on her, but I thought her uh, vision of what it means to fast kind of stands out, kind of gives you a picture of what that means. So if Barbara doesn't mind, I ask her, uh, what does she see with fasting, what she's mentioned or talked about yesterday, please.
Good morning, everybody. Yesterday, as we were talking, the thing that I was thinking about was the fact that fasting is not necessarily as we've seen it before, as we've been taught in religious settings, that we fast, to get in touch with our, to refrain from things so that we can get in touch with the inner self and the spiritual self. But for us, we are already at that past that point where we're aware of who we are. And so when we started talking about fasting yesterday, it seemed to be a two-way street in a sense. In other words, our fasting is not for us at this point. It is not for us to internally connect with who we are, because we already understand that, or a lot of us understand that. And so we use meditation as a faster method, and not necessarily a faster method, but it's a almost direct opportunity for us to get in contact and to understand and to be aware and be connected with the spirit of which we are. So fasting has to do with, at this point, if you look at Isaiah, it talked about what fasting is, and from a perspective of Elohim, that fasting is not for us. It's I'm looking at it right now. It says this is the kind of fast day I'm after. You fasted before, and you fasted and you still did the same things you did before. You fasted before and you still, closed your fist at people. You fasted before and you still had an attitude with people. That's not the fasting that I'm concerned with. The fasting I'm concerned with is to break chains of injustice, to get rid of that exploitation, not only in the workplace but everywhere, to free the oppressed, whatever that oppression is, whether it's the oppression of fear, of doubt, of being tied up and bound in sin, whatever that oppression is, to share with the homeless. So at this point, fasting is not what we do for us to get in touch with us. Fasting is the opportunity, now that we understand who we are, to share that understanding. And that does not necessarily mean I come from the Bible and I'm quoting scripture. The sharing of it is the sharing of self. And so there's a saying that the sages used to say. It says, as much as the calf wants to suckle, the newborn calf wants to suckle from his mother, as much as that calf wants to suckle, the mother wants to be suckled. In other words, it becomes that kind of relationship where we have the responsibility, not the choice at this point, but we understand who we are, And in that understanding, we have the responsibility to do what it is we need to do to relieve whatever is the burden of others as we can and as we are able to. So that's in a nutshell without just rambling. Thank you.
No, thank you. Beautifully said. And that sums it up. A lot bigger picture than we've ever seen before when we think about fasting and take away the self part of it, the selfishness of it. And it's a lot broader, lot more in a spiritual sense, a lot more community driven than we could have ever imagined. So,
Ron,
yes, sir.
good morning, everyone. When we take away the burdens of others, we also relieve our own burdens. You know, we talk about when you're going through something, help someone else,
Mm-hmm.
and you will see that your circumstances are different, or that you're more able to deal with them. So this whole idea of fasting, when you relieve burdens, it's a continuous thing. I relieve yours, mine I relieve, somebody relieves mine, etc.
Yeah.
So that, to me, that's another way of saying through fasting, we bring balance to humanity.
Yes.
I'm done.
Thank you.
So question, comment, whatever. So motivation is a real important thing in terms of fasting. Your own motivation for doing it.
I would say yes. Your motivation for doing it determines whether or not how effective it is. If my motivation for fasting is to get my burdens relieved, then it's different than my motivation for fasting to relieve yours.
Or if your motivation for fasting is to feel religious,
yes,
then yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But isn't that also a part of the journey? Yeah, I think sincerity and desire play a part, because on the onset, when we started off, we didn't really know what we were looking for, except saying we were looking for truth. So part of the journey in understanding, even looking at the scriptures or looking at fasting or even looking at what is a free will, all of that was as we understood, as our awareness increased, so that our desire for truth in that area. So it all may have started off selfishly, because we believed that's what salvation was. You have to do this to save yourself, or kind of thing. We never thought about you change the world by you changing yourself, and it being a community, a universal thing. We grew into that understanding, but so I think motives speak to your desires, as well as your desires increase and your desires change. Would that not be fair to say?
Well,
Yeah.
there is a learning curve there. However, as you were talking, I was thinking back to when I taught about the concept of fasting. I never taught fasting for yourself. It was always fasting for someone else, or fasting for something else. Fasting so we could get understanding, fasting so on behalf of people who are suffering, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as fasting to get through something for myself, even when I went on the 40-day fast, it was for me to be able to see spiritually. Now, what that looked like, I had no clue.
Mhm.
I wanted to see spiritually. Why? It wasn't because I wanted my name on the marquee. It's because I wanted to teach the people that had been given to me to cover, so the people I cover. So I don't know if that makes any sense to others, or how other people saw fasting when you were fasting, but I am aware that most of us who are on this call at some time has fasted. But I don't remember us having fasted simply for ourselves as opposed to for other people. Anyone who's fasted, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's part of what I'm saying. I too have fasted for 40 days, and just being unaware, my fasting was to show, and I realized it was not to show God, but to show me I'm sincere about this. I'm starting something that I want to give my all to, and I want understanding. And I did not think about it in a more universal way. Uh, I was thinking, and it wasn't for any one thing. I didn't do it for money or a job or it's just something internally was saying to me, what, I was asking myself, what can I do to show you how dedicated I am to this? And I was talking to myself, and that was the answer. So
So fasting, where I see it anyway, even though it was for others, it was it was based upon a religious understanding of fasting, as opposed to the spiritual understanding that we're discussing now. But we had to start someplace, right?
yes.
And you can never start in a place other than the place where you are at that moment. And the place where we were at that moment was seekers of change, whether it had been change for those who are suffering, or whether it was change for our understanding of what we were being taught. Those of you who have heard me talk about fasting and the fast I teach it, can you remember, or do you remember rather, any time when we fasted for ourselves? Seriously, I can't remember it at this moment. If you do remember that, let me know, please. If not, um, do the same. Now, all these people on this call know now. You know I've talked about fasting. I just wanted to get your take on it. Oh, well.
Well, when I learned about fasting, it related to, it was almost about me trying to know me, trying to find the connection, if you will, the spiritual connection inward for me. It didn't have the broader aspect to it from my perspective, my understanding that when I do this, when I understand who I am, then I have a relationship with my external, or with others who are the same as me, because I didn't understand that I was one with everyone else. So it was about me trying to know me, in a sense.
Thank you.
Pastor.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to add this on what Barbara said. That the last time I actually fasted was the initial thought was to basically reset the cells in my body from a physical standpoint, but from the spiritual side of it, the connection and just the clarity to just realign your focus in a way on things also comes because you kind of take out a few distractions that it started out from a physical standpoint of looking at from the science side of it, resetting my cells in the body, but also you gain this kind of a clarity and a focus that you become more in tune with things.
Thank you.
Good morning, Ron. Good morning, everyone. This is from Philly. When I, think about fasting, from the religious standpoint or in the church, you know what I mean? It was talked about that we should fast for a particular purpose of something that, need to be not just rectified, but something that needed to be dealt with in terms of particular challenge or issue, whatever it may be. And, I never initially looked at it in terms of just fasting for myself. And as I, continue to understand, in reading Isaiah 58, part of it talked about true and false worship in terms of the observances of fasting. But as I come to appreciate, we talked a little bit about that self-examination and being able to appreciate not only who we are, but what is our desire. And this is what, led me to look at verses 11 and 12, but at the same time, to look at it from the beginning. And as I come to understand fasting, it wasn't not necessarily, about the physical changes that our bodies may go through when we fast, or just some of the physical, experiences that we may have, but also terms of, what is it spiritually? And, again, I'm hoping that there's further clarity in terms of why we do it. But the initial aspect was to look at it in terms of how we were taught, but now go and look at it in terms of how our ancestors may have looked at it. And it might not been in the same terminology, but it was to something that they were seeking. And I think that this gives some revelation to that in 11 and 12 of Isaiah 58. I'm done.
Thank you, George.
This is Charlie. Now, when I fasted to know God, to know what He had for me, and how can I seek Him. And that was that's the only thing I can say.
So basically, the bottom line is we were fasting to know God, but at the same time, we did not realize that we were fasting to know ourselves. Does that make sense? And the other one was fasting to change issues in communities. Now, what do we see? We see that the true essence of fasting is not just you being hungry, but to keep others from being hungry. not that you abstaining from eating, but you making sure that someone else eats. Fasting to not just to clothe yourself, but make sure others are clothed. All those things, everything that I see, especially the way it's laid out in the Message Bible, it is for everyone else except you. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Yes.
So right now, I do believe that, thank you, that our understanding that is for everyone else except self is really, but even though it's for everyone else except self always benefit from it by virtue of helping mankind, reaching out to others. Because reaching out to others is also reaching out to yourself, but that's not how we deal with it in terms of our, as Audrey brought up earlier, motivation. Our motivation is what we're reading now, what we're seeing now. And it is my contention, and I would love to know if you agree with this. When we look at this, if we do it the way we're talking about, then what happens? When we seek, we are always fine. And it also leads us to a place where we become more cognizant of the injustices around us and have a much deeper desire to commit ourselves to transforming those injustices to justice, and also finding in this strength and a firm foundation for us to stand on, which means that we are more in a position to take the remnants of what of past destruction and build something positive out of it. The rubble that has been left behind by all of the negative discourse and adverse circumstances, we become the repairs of the breach, the repairs of what breach, the gulf that has separated us based upon those injustices. Now we begin to repair that so that we're no longer viewing ourselves as being separate from each other, but we're viewing ourselves as being one. Because the sense of being separate from each other gives us a greater sense of not only being distant, but more importantly, it's like the distance between us numbs our sense of empathy for each other. But knowing that we're the reason that we are doing this increases our sensitivity to empathy. I'm done. That's where I see it anyway. But you can't do that without understanding the true nature of the fast in the beginning.
One of when you look up the word fast, one of the things it talks about, it means to cover the mouth. And when we look at that, we always think of eating or so nothing, so I can't put food in my mouth because that's what we relate fasting to. But what if a good example of that is you're not only covering your mouth physically, you're covering those voices inside of you that talk to you about selfishness. The hunger could be for more money. The hunger could be because you feel an injustice was done towards you. The hunger could be, and the thing that you see done to the African, or other things, that brings you to a place inside of yourself. So as you quiet those voices, you then, because one thing fasting does is it shows you yourself, and you get to see who you are. So when we have talked about the injustices, for example, the women, and the disrespect to women, or the one of the things that got my attention here recently, is the child hunger in America, uh, and all of the school programs that are being cut out, and whatnot. When we talk about those things, and we talk about putting things in the macro, could that be examples of what fasting supposed to look like? So it not only, I think not only do you put food and make sure someone else eats, it also helps bring harmony and balance to you as well, as you understand and see yourself from the inside out. So just saying, when we talk about putting things in the macro, maybe we've been a lot closer to this thing than we originally thought.
I agree with that. I also see that covering your mouth also keeps us from being adversarial in our speech. It's a whole host of things that I believe covering your mouth speaks to, that's far more effective than refraining from putting food in your mouth.
Yeah.
And Jesus alluded to that in Matthew, I think 25, when you talked about fasting, you should, but the greater things you have not done. I think it alludes to that too. And that is one of the reasons we have to be very cognizant of how we speak in reference to those around us, but also the chaos that's around us. If we continuously talk about what's going to happen as a result of the environment of politics that we live in now, then are we not giving life to it? If we talk about how dangerous Trump is, or how unconcerned Biden is, or how mean McConnell is, those kinds of things, are we not giving life to those adversities, or that type of adversarial action? And the reason I say that is because you cannot be Elohim without being a giver of life. And and excuse me, and Elohim being our creator, being 100% spirit, the thoughts gave life to what we are, what we experiencing. Therefore, we being in these bodies, not only do our thoughts give life, but our words do as well. And I think that's what is meant when we're shown that life and death is in the tongue. I don't think it's talking about bio death at all, or life at all. Spiritual life and spiritual death is in the tongue, meaning that you can bring into existence righteousness or unrighteousness. And I do believe that sometimes we bring more unrighteousness into the earth than we do righteousness, even though our quest is to be righteous. And the way we do that is by how we speak about the things around us. We speak when we talk about how detrimental Trump is to the country, or how detrimental Biden is to Gaza, then we're giving life to that, as opposed to speaking what our desires are in terms of yes, the things in Gaza are reprehensible. However, there is a spiritual message in them that's totally different than laying the quote unquote blame on the shoulders or at the feet of an individual person. Does that make sense? So we have to be cognizant of that. Think twice, speak once. And I think another thing that we should be looking at anyway is always putting ourselves in the place of the receiver. If we believe that, and I keep using these examples because everyone is familiar with them, but it's not limited to Trump or Biden or anyone else like that. If we keep looking at it from an individual perspective by virtue of laying it at an individual's feet, then we are simply giving more strength, not to that individual, but to those who think like that individual. So the most important thing that we can do, at least my thoughts are the most important things that we can do, is be cognizant of what we say and how we say it. If we are the vanguard, then whatever happens with us, in terms, not just in terms of our speech right now while we're on, this is important, yes, but the question is this: how far do you take what you hear here? I'm not talking about taking it to someone else and telling them about it, but how far do you carry it with you? If we talk about the adversities that we give life to because of the way we speak about them, that when we hear where we are in this particular space, it is easy for us to agree with that and to say, this is what I'm going to be about. However, what happens when you're not in this space? What happens when you are at the grocery store? What happens when you are cut off by a driver? What happens when the weather changes and you have to get out in it? What happens when your expectations are not met by someone else? How do you do these things? And the reason I say about the weather is because you would be amazed at the number of times. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Oops. What did I do? We would be amazed at the number of times that that we say things without thinking about it, and give life to other things that we do not want to happen. When Jesus, when we were given examples through Jesus, what were we given? We are supposed to be very, very careful about how we speak. Why did Jesus say that? Jesus talked about how the priesthood did not think favorably in regards to the people. But when it came to the politicians, what did Jesus say? Render unto Caesar which is that which is Caesar's. But even when when Jesus was being unrighteously persecuted, and when the governmental officials said we found no fault in him, and they beat him anyway, he didn't curse them. He didn't do that. He sought forgiveness for them. So I think that those are the things that is the thing we need to keep in mind. And again, I hearken back to what I said earlier. Things as simple as somebody cutting you off in traffic is just as important as someone saying something.
Reb, you on mute. Are your phone turned off one?
They'll figure it out.
Run. Hello?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Reb still on, or he just turned off?
Looks like we may have lost him temporarily.
Okay.
So I was trying to give him a second to come back on. Here he comes.
I don't know what happened. Are you able to hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. I don't know what happened. I don't know the last thing you heard. But I'm done.
Okay.
Hey, Reb, I got a question. When did Jesus go into the wilderness himself? I know the Holy Spirit, took him into the wilderness. What was his purpose during the time he was in that wilderness?
The wilderness experience was not a physical experience. The wilderness experience was a spiritual experience. And we are, as opposed to going into the wilderness and coming out with a great understanding of ourselves, Jesus went into the wilderness, and during that period he was shown those things that he needed to come to grips with, those things that he needed to embrace so he could rise above them. The difference now is we go in and out of the wilderness more frequently than we should, because it appears that we are so easily taken aback by the things that we face on a daily basis, as opposed to going through that and then being done with it,
Okay.
We are still in a place of wrestling, honestly. Wrestling with whether or not we are going to remain in the consciousness that has been promised to us, or whether we are going to fluctuate between the wilderness of struggle to hold on to what we know the truth to be. Are we going to do that and just live on the edge of the consciousness that was promised to us? That's the decision that each one of us has to make. at some point in our life, we have to make the choice. My determination is, excuse me, to enter this space of consciousness, meaning that the consciousness that was promised to us is an awareness of who we are. When I use the word consciousness, I'm talking about awareness also. Being aware of who we are and holding on to that regardless of what we have to go through. Because we committed ourselves to holding on to that regardless of the struggles that we face. And every day of our lives, at some point, we're reminded of that, not necessarily by something saying, you know what you promised, that's not it, but by the adversarial things that set themselves before us. Those are opportunities for us to become stronger. It's like going into a spiritual gymnasium and lifting weights. And you say, well, I thought it was going to be easy, but everything is seemingly getting worse for me. Well, that's not getting worse for you. It's simply saying that you have moved to heavier weights. If you're in that gym, if you're going to lift 25 pounds, 100 pounds, and that's all, you're going to do that continuously, but at the same time, you want to get stronger. Either you're going to increase your reps or you're going to increase your weight. So that's what this is all about spiritually. You're going to increase your reps, meaning that you're going to keep going through the same things over and over again and until you get it, or you're going to increase the weights, which means that you're going to carry heavier burdens, you're going to face more complicated issues. And when you face them, and once you face them rather, then there is something else to be dealt with in terms of issues. However, the issues may not even be yours. It may be things confronting you that you are dealing with on behalf of others. And others, if I'm gonna speak, could be the people who live next door to you, or it could be the people who live in China. But you're doing it, what you face is not just for you. And that's all based upon what we have gathered as an understanding of fasting now. So with that in mind, we need to step back and ask ourselves: Are we appropriating the essence of who we are in the right manner, or are we giving lip service to it? And when we find that we are doing something other than being who we know that we are, that we step back from that and give ourselves the space for redemption. If we are unable to do that, and many times I've been through that, I've not been able to do that, but I call someone who talks with me and helps me get through it. So Charles, this whole wilderness experience is based upon you, and how much you're committed to not repeating that wilderness experience on a continuous basis. Does that help you, Charles?
That helped me a whole lot. Now, another question. Did Job experience, is this about like what Jesus went through? Job had to go through the wilderness, and the tempter had come to him as his wife, trying to get him to cuss God.
All that's the same story.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
And it's the same story with you, with me, with every one of us. See, I can't tell you that you're going to enter this consciousness on April the 2nd, 2024. Neither can you tell yourself that you're going to do it on April 2024, because circumstances are the teacher. Circumstances teaches you where you are, and it gives you opportunity to become stronger in what you believe. In every circumstance, we have a choice to make. Is it going to strengthen, weaken, or confuse us? That's our choice. We can talk, we can teach, even if we were able to understand every single allegory and its spiritual meanings. And we are here sharing it with everyone who's on this call or this line. It does not mean that you have to accept it. I can't force you to, and I can't tell you when you will. All that's upon you. See, I am not responsible for you at all and what you do and say. I am responsible to you. My responsibility to you is to do everything I can to make sure that you understand the spiritual essence of who you are and what's expected of you. The reason I'm not responsible for you is because you have to make your own decisions in that regard. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Thank you. And that goes for everyone. You don't have the right to force feed anyone or to make efforts to push them to accept or embrace anything, because that's manipulation. If you don't freely accept it, then you're not it, whatever the it is. You have to make the decision that that's what you want to embrace. And whatever you truly desire to embrace, you will fight for it. You do whatever it takes to hold on to it. And you will come to the place where you're willing to make what we deem to be sacrifices in order to become stronger in your being, or become more informed as to the essence of who you are. These things are not arrived at or embraced through osmosis. Everything that we have endeavored to understand has been a struggle, has been based on commitment. I mean, think about where we are now. We spent hours, we spent days and weeks and months doing research on individual things, on the individual verses or sayings, in order for us to understand it. And now we're at a place where it is much easier for us to receive from the infusion of the ancestors, as opposed to having to spend eons of time trying to discern what's being said. That's one of the reasons I believe that that's what we are where we are now, because when we talk about, we talk about the repairs of the breach, I do believe that the reason we have to do this, one of them anyway, is because of where we are. We don't have time to be deciding whether we go cut somebody out who cut us off in traffic, because that takes time away from bringing harmony to humanity. We don't have time to argue about what the difference between a speech that some politician gave and what we believe. We don't have time for that. That's not our focus. That's not our monkey. That's not our circles. That's somebody else's. We have no reason to engage that in that manner. Engage it, yes, but not in that manner. Our efforts must remain the same, and that is bringing harmony to humanity. And that may sound crazy to some, because if you were to ask me, what does that look like? I do not believe I would be able to tell you what that looks like, but I can tell you this. You will know it when you experience it. But right now, that is an experience that we are still reaching for. And I do think that there are landmarks that we're going to be able to follow, and that will show us when we are having that experience of unicity. I will tell you that I am very much aware that we are in a space that we've never been in before because of the urgency of what we haven't been shown or being shown. One of the main things that we needed to be shown before we could even begin to look at fasting or repairing a breach is the beginnings of spirituality. And we were looking at the beginnings of spirituality in Babylon, and it is. But we just came to the understanding recently that the Mecca, the central space of spirituality, is in Kemet as opposed to Jerusalem. We just came to that realization and understanding, and that came in a very surreptitious way. We were seeking to understand the different gods that were mentioned in Kemet. And what we began to see is that they are not gods at all. They're spirit, they're energy forces, they're divine energy forces. But during that process, we did not delve into any deep conversations or discussions about it. Our desire was to understand it. And because of that desire, we were on the same page when it comes to that. And because of that desire, the people who the Creator has granted us privilege to teach are more comfortable with it than they've ever been in terms of not running away from it as being blasphemous or being something that's profane. So all of this had to take place for us to get to where we are. And one of the major pieces of that we have gathered understanding about recently is that the fasting is unheard of in Kemet. So spirituality in the beginning had fasting is foreign to spirituality from the beginning. And the fasting that I'm speaking of is the fasting that we were taught. The way we were taught to fast is foreign to spirituality. And that's why it was so imperative that we understand the difference between the two right now. And in addition to that, when we get there, to really delve into what it means to repair the breach, we're at a space where we are actually talking about bringing harmony to humanity, because the breach is simply space between. And when it's repaired, there's unicity, there's harmony. So anyway, I'm done. Thank you, guys.
Audrey's had a hand up for a while.
You just said everything I was thinking. Because I was thinking about what Ron said the other day, that there's no place mentioned about fasting in Kemet. And if you look at what the text says about the Creator's choice of fasting, is to loose the bonds of wickedness, to let the oppressed go free, to break every yoke, to share bread with the hungry, all of those things.
Yes.
And all of those things, if you go back and read the 42 principles of Ma'at, you can see all of them right there. So those people were fasting spiritually all the time.
All the time. Yeah.
Because they were keeping those principles. So when it talks about rebuilding ancient ruins, it's because we let those ancient principles go. Just in our capitalist society, our form of religion or whatever, we let those principles go. But when we can rebuild those ancient spiritual principles from the ruins, if we can repair those foundations, then we repair the breach within ourselves. And I think we can't repair the breach for anybody else until we do it for ourselves. So if we get back to the real spiritual side of fasting, then we repair ourselves, and then we can do it for humanity. So yeah, you said everything I was thinking.
And Audrey, you said everything that I was thinking, with regards to the oneness. And I think this is what's taking us back to coming to a reckoning, looking at it in a corrective method in terms of how our ancestors were able to do this, and not in the same terminology in terms of as we read it from the Bible. I mean, you look at it, and in verse 11, it says, and the Lord will continually guide you and satisfy your desire in scorched places, dry places, and give strength to your bones, and you will be like a watered garden and like a spring of water whose waters do not fail. And so when we go back and we appreciate looking at, as you say, the ancient ruins, but it says, and they that shall be of thee shall build the old waste places and raise up a future generation, and they shall be called the repairers of the breach, but the restorers of paths to dwell in, to walk in. So we're walking in that portal. We're walking in, that Stargate, where now we're seeing it from the origins of humanity. And so I think that this is what was so, significant, in our readings as we come to understand this. And the Lord will continually, when we say the Lord, we talk about it, in terms of Yahweh, Jehovah, or El Shaddai, or whatever those names are. But I think that if we can look at it from the beginning, as Pastor, talks about, as we talk about Elohim being plural, then I think there's some significance in there. But as you, stated, Audrey, in terms of the true and false fasting, true and false prayers, true and false meditations, all of those are thoughts. And I think that we're coming more in unison in terms of the clarity of what it really means. And I think that's the whole emphasis about reading the Bible, but looking at it linguistically, looking at it in that perspective of what is the true meaning when we talk about reading it in English, reading in Aramaic, reading it in Hebrew, reading it, in those ways that it changed from the initial origin of what it was. Like we have the different translations. It's not that it's bad, but it all still originated from that primary source, if that resonates with anybody or everybody. I'm done.
I understand and agree with what you're saying. I want to, based on what George and Audrey just mentioned, this is, I think, is a lot clearer in the Message Bible. You'll be known. Well, let me start at you use the old rubble of past lives to build anew. Rebuild the foundations from out of your past. You'll be known as those who can fix anything, restore old ruins, rebuild and renovate, make the community livable again. That's exactly what was said between Audrey and George a moment ago. And this, we look at this, and we've talked about it in years gone, but we never saw it like we're seeing it now. It's simply, when we talk about bringing harmony, this is what we're talking about. Building the old foundations. And the foundations is the foundation of spirituality in Kemet. That's what the foundations are. We in the past we've sought to build on the foundation, but the one that did not exist, the foundation of Christianity. There's no foundation for anything. But George, I'm looking
Yeah, pass it. And I just want to, just right
at this time. I see
right in the
George's hand.
moment of what you just said, I was looking at the New Living Translation, and this is what it says. Some of you will, and it says, some of you will rebuild the deserted ruins of your cities. Then you will be known as a rebuilder of walls and a restorer of homes. It's the same thing, but I think that it starts, with that whole aspect of you and home. Where do everything starts? Where does it begin? The Garden of Eden, home. So I'm sorry, Pastor. I just wanted to emphasize.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
In this regard, where is home? You are home. It begins with you. If you cannot build upon the foundation that you are, then the expectation is not for you to be able to build on the foundation that is outside of your parameters. Because if I build on the foundation within me, what is that? That foundation within me is bringing together the ruins of old that have been scattered. So, and that means that the ruins of old is speaking to me anyway. It's speaking to the spiritual understandings that we had, the unicity with our Creator that we experienced, the things that have been suppressed within us that are spiritual, the substitutes that we have made with religion in place of spirituality. All of those kinds of things, I have to regenerate in terms of my awareness. When that happens, now we're able to talk about it, and you're doing the same thing. So I talk about what I see in the perspective that I'm being shown, and you do the same thing. And as a result of that, Audrey can say things like, well, you just said what I was thinking, because we're on the same page. And as long as that we're aware of that and that we function that way, there's, as it says in the Message Bible, we will be able to fix anything. Anything. And that's the goal, is it not?
Yeah. Can I say something here that I think ties in beautifully with where we are. The other night, Friday night, I was went to bed late. I probably went to bed a little after 2 a.m. And I'm laying there and something got my attention. What got my attention is, if a lot of you don't know this, but I live close to downtown, and it is extremely noisy. I live in an apartment, and you hear people all the time. You hear sirens, you hear traffic. But that Friday night, you couldn't hear a pin drop. It was quiet, extremely quiet. And that got my attention. And I started meditating, I started praying, and the first thing that came to me was how thankful and grateful I am for who I am and what the Creator has done in my life and the people He's put in my life. And that was very strong on me. And I sat there and I listened, and I recognized who and what we are and where we are in this journey. The other day, last week, there was a riff that I was a part of. And it's been on me ever since. Uh, and the lessons have gone on, but they're different. To me, they're different. This has been something that has been in me. And part of this is recognizing that this is a lot, what we do is a lot bigger than who and what I am. Or when you talk about the breach talks about uh, making repairs. It talks about bringing back that which is scattered. It talks about that thing that was fragmented. And what happened the other week had three parts to it to me that I want to address. One, I want to address Richard. I talked about this a little bit on Sunday, but it was kind of right after it happened, and I did not have time to reflect on this. I want to address Richard. Uh, I want to address Audrey, and I want to address you guys, uh, the other people that are on this phone. I owe you guys an apology. This is bigger than me. And the thing that came to me Friday night is there is nobody else in the earth that does what we're doing. I am appreciative of that. I am appreciative of the fact that as someone who has always kind of questioned my existence and why I'm here, why God put me in the earth to begin with. And I take this extremely seriously, and this become my life. I love it. But a little voice says something to me. If you believe in what we're doing, if you see everything that's going on here, and you see the journey that you guys are taking, and the understanding that you're gaining, and you're looking at this and you see that fasting is something that opens you up, but you see that the you is much larger than that, then who said to you that you needed to protect any of this? This is bigger than me. I don't need to protect anything. So all I'm doing is being a small part of opening up this and helping us to see who we are and following the path that this leads. So if I fragmented this in any way, I apologize to Richard. I apologize to Audrey for being in the middle of this, I guess, a part of this. I think she had to be affected by it as well. And I apologize to the rest of you. This is much bigger than individual, and I don't need to save anything. I don't need to protect anything. This is a large part of what we're talking about now and what it means to fast and see the community and be the community and not listen to those voices inside of you and being able to control you. And so I hope, I hope this, like I say, this has been on me. I hope this is something that you see that I'm sincere about. I hope this is you accept my apology. And I hope if you feel some kind of way, let me know and see what we can do about it. If not, I hope we can move on. But I see this as, I don't think it's a coincidence that we're talking about fasting and seeing ourselves and understanding this and repairing a breach. If we can't repair a breach within this family, then how can we expect to repair anything outside of this? So that's it. Any questions or comments?
Hey, good morning, everyone. The greatest part that I've learned with fasting by way of this lesson today is for
George,
an individual.
George, would you hold 1 second, please?
Yes, sir.
What Ron just expressed, I think that we need to leave some space so that if there are questions or comments from those who were the recipients or directly affected by what he's talking about, can respond to that. I don't think that at this point we should just brush over it and move forward. This is something serious, and it has been seriously approached, I do believe, seriously handled, I think. And I want to be sure that we have some clarity here. And for those of you who are listening at this particular recording, there are some things that transpired that you would probably never hear about because we purposely did not post that particular recording. So the responses, I don't want us to just simply respond by just going on to the next thing. You know, I think it's something that needs to be absorbed, embraced. Does that make sense, guys?
And one of the things was I wanted to do this at the beginning of the lesson, but when we first started, we didn't have as many people on us. I noticed here we had as many as 28 people on, and it happened to the group. I needed to apologize to the group, and nor did we have Richard or Audrey on at the onset. So, and I do indeed think it's a part of what we're talking about. Where we are right now. I don't think any of this is a coincidence.
Well, I really appreciate what you said, Ron. I don't think it's a coincidence either. And I was feeling a bit of a breach. And it was something I was working on within myself. And I really appreciate what you've said.
Thank you. I was
you.
feeling it as well. I was. And I apologize.
I appreciate it.
Ron, this is Rick. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I got headphones on and other things going, so I'm not sure. Well, I appreciate your saying that. I pretty much had put it down by now, but I will say that for a number of days, and that up to the point, at least of the follow-up phone call that I had with you, and a little beyond, yeah, I was carrying this because I felt, well, I don't know how well I can express. I was surprised, if not sort of shocked. I know I can, well, even now, wander around a little bit, but I honestly don't believe my basic intent is just to be other than I know how to do it. And sometimes I know how to be, and sometimes that can be a bit verbose. I can bring in things from the outside that do or don't fit, but for me, it's sort of broadening the perspective on things. And what troubled me most, I felt a bit offended, but not attacked, but I was actually a little concerned about you. I wondered what was so heavy in you that made this interpretation or this reaction come out. And I wondered if you were going through some stresses and other things in your life that just sort of found their way out in this. So I pretty much moved on a bit, but I won't say I just put it down and wasn't upset by it. I appreciate your apology. None of us want to carry weights and burdens that we don't need to. I'm being verbose again. Okay. Anyway, I appreciate your saying what you said, and it's past.
Yeah. Well, as I said from the onset, I want to say this early. We are changing the world. If I didn't believe that, I wouldn't keep doing this. And as I did the other night, I thank the Creator for that and allowing us to do this and for me to be a part of it. It gives, to me anyway, gives purpose to my life. And so this is far beyond it. Nobody has assigned me to protect anything or to be overseer or anything. This is an honor to be a servant to do this. And I don't want to ever lose sight of that. And the way it happened, Richard, kind of surprised me too. I'll say that maybe we're so close to something or on to something that this was a distraction that tried to move us away from it. I don't know. But I hope, my sincere hope is, I hope that this makes us stronger than we were before.
Well, for me, when these kind of things happen, ultimately it's an opportunity to sort of look inside yourself. Why did I do that?
Yeah.
You know, and we're all different people. And I know you have to be more patient with some of us than the others. Just because of and I don't mean you personally, but one's own personality. And we're trying to meld together a lot of sort of aspects of perspectives and places where we are to something that's more coherent and has some understanding of purpose for ourselves, at least, if not also hopefully for others. So it should get messy every once in a while. I think back to the time in Foundation when what was it called, when we were going through the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life. I'm not sure you weren't attending very much back then, but we used to joke about the Jewish expression, the meshla, that sort of purposeful arguing about scripture interpretation and things. And that was meant to be a vibrant kind of thing. So in the spirit of that, I think that's why people stay on the phone, to know that they're allowed to wander a bit, or if it's harder for somebody to get it out succinctly. But then we do have also each other, maybe to kind of ask a question that brings people back in a little bit. So it's just an occasion to examine, to me, whether we got a little too intense. And when you get that intense, what are you holding, like you said, what are you holding up, trying to protect? Particularly if it's at the expense of someone else. And then we have to come back later and talk it out. But that's kind of what happened. So I appreciate what you said. I'm okay. And I'm here. So I'm still ears wide open. I just try to be a little more succinct when I speak. But I apologize if it's a burden for people, but it's just my way to bring in things from the outside. And I don't have the depth of scriptural background that you do, but I think that's one of the joys of this group. People can bring in other things. But it's ultimately should be to try to add to the understanding or the perspective that we're trying to get to. Okay. Peace.
Thank you for the apology, you guys, for accepting it. To this day, I've not listened to it, and I was not led to. Something in me told me not to. Now I see why. Because of who we are, what we do. At some point, it had to come to the place where the resolution came from those involved, from Ron in particular, and the acceptance of the apology. I don't believe that it was coincidental. I know it wasn't coincidental. I know that it happened because there were some other things that needed to be dug up. I did not know it then, but during the course of my seeking understanding of what happened, that's what I've seen. And today we have repaired the breach within our environment, which means that now we are better able, better equipped to repair the breach for humanity. Because though we repair the breach individually, it has to be collective within our environment, and that has been done. And as far as I am concerned, the breach has been repaired, and there is no further reason for us to even deal with it anymore, because we cannot allow anything to rear its head that has the possibility of stopping us momentarily, but not stopping us permanently, because that's not going to happen. We're too committed for that. So thank all of you. And I do believe that also this is a place where we should take a pause, as Ron puts it. Why? I think the concrete that's been poured to fill the breach needs to settle and be hardened. And then we come back together tomorrow evening and begin afresh. We have entered a portal that we've never been in before. Let's enjoy it. Thank you. Love you guys.
Thank you.
I could not think of any people better for the Creator to allow me to cover. And Audrey, was your hand up there?
No, just waving goodbye.
Oh, okay. All right. So we're done. Unless there's Ron or Audrey or Richard has something else to add to this.
No, well, not necessarily to this, but a couple things. One, George hadn't forgotten you. If you're on tomorrow, bring up the point you were going to bring up. Okay. And the other thing, that the repair of the breach, we hadn't talked about the word repairer. Repairer talks to me anyway, goes back and say what you guys have said about Kemet. Repairer said that this thing was whole at one time. So, it couldn't be repaired if it had not been what it needed to be in the beginning. So I think that that's something we've addressed, and I just thought that was something important.
Maybe we can start that tomorrow when we get George's input from what he was about to say. George Watson, you gonna be on tomorrow?
Looks like he's gone already.
Okay.
Yeah.
But at any rate, I'll make contact with George, and then we'll go from there tomorrow. Okay.
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 Thank y'all. Love y'all.
All right.
See you later.
Take care, family.
Take care.
All right. Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you, everyone.